Wondering how you can defeat the AI boss in your job hunt? I have some ideas. Let's talk about it. What's going on? Welcome back to the show. My name is Joe King. I am your host. This is episode 9 of the Game Industry Job Hunt podcast. I'm flying solo on this one, guys. No guest this episode, so I'm going to try to keep this a little bit shorter, a little more brief than normal, because I'm sure you don't want to hear me yak all over the place about AI, which is what we're talking about today. So AI is, of course, a very hot topic in the game industry job market right now, as you all know. According to Workable, let me throw a little stat in here for you. According to Workable, 68% of organizations have increased their use of AI tools in the recruitment process. Very interesting. So in this episode, I want to talk about some ways that you can adapt your strategy to not only overcome some of the challenges or the perceived challenges of AI in the job hunt, but also offer some tips on how you can use AI to make your job hunt easier. AI is not all bad. I'm sure many of us know that, but it's worth saying, I think, right? There are a lot of challenges with AI, right? When you're job hunting, we all know that. But AI can offer some value too and help make things easier and really help streamline your process. My hope is that I can sort of impart a few tips that I've learned in my job hunt to you vis-a-vis AI that may help. So really quick before we do that though, I do want to ask you guys to share the show with one person who you know that's on the job hunt in the games industry. I think we're putting out some really valuable content right now, and we've gotten some amazing insights from all of our guests that we've had on so far. The game industry especially is in really rough shape, and so I think that any of us listening to this that are in the industry, if you're not job hunting yourself, you definitely know someone who is. So if you would be so kind as to share the show with them, the goal here, again, help as many people as we can, but in order to do that, I need your help. So share the show with at least one person that you think could benefit from it and help us grow this thing. All right, let's do it. So with that out of the way, let's dive in. Okay, so first, let's go over a couple of the challenges of AI. All right, so the first challenge is the dreaded ATS or applicant tracking system, right? If you're not aware, things have changed a lot in the past few years. So I know for me, I got laid off last May and sort of felt like I was in a new world with AI and these applicant tracking systems and things like that. I was applying to jobs, sort of wondering why I wasn't hearing back, feeling like I was really qualified for these jobs that I'm applying for, right? And I'm not hearing anything back. And I'm wondering, what the heck is going on here? And it took me a little bit to sort of learn about ATS systems. So if you don't know, ATS systems are essentially programs that filter out resumes before a human even sees them. And of course, with that comes the reality that they often reject highly qualified candidates, which can be super frustrating, especially, in a world where we're getting ghosted more than half the time anyway, right? The ATS is sort of becoming this sort of AI boss, I guess you could say, of the game industry job hunt. And so this is sort of one of the areas that I mentioned where AI presents challenges, right? The ATS systems are tough and they're frustrating and they're just no good. They don't seem like they're any good for anybody, but there are ways that you can adapt to maximize your chances of getting past that ATS and onto a human. And so we're going to go over a couple of those now. So the first one is keyword optimization. And I know this is something that a lot of people talk about, making sure that your resume has keywords from the job description, phrases from the job description, anything like that is sort of going to allow the ATS to pick up on your resume and say, oh, hey, this person's resume matches the job description that we're searching for. Recruiter, HR person, you should look at this resume, right? So that's essentially what the ATS does. If you're putting in the work to make sure that your resume has keyword optimization happening, you're going to go far. That's not to say that every resume that you send out, every application that you make is going to make it past the ATS. It's not a magic formula to always get the interview, always get past these systems, but it definitely helps. The other thing is keep your resume formatting simple, okay? So avoid images, columns, any kind of excessive design. It's really easy to want to make your resume a little flashier so that you can stand out from the crowd, and that's totally understandable. But the truth is, standing out from the crowd in a visual sense isn't always what you want. You really want your resume to speak for itself, and that information on your resume and your experience to speak for itself, including lots of wins, lots of metrics saying, hey, I improved X, Y, and Z by, X, Y, and Z percent. Things like that are always good. You've probably heard this kind of stuff even on this show 1,000 times. We talk about this all the time. But really do try to keep your resume simple. For those that may not know, when I got started in the industry, I had just sort of a vanilla Word doc resume, and I ran it by my brother-in-law, who was in the industry also, and he encouraged me to break away from the vanilla Word doc resume and do something that stood out a lot more. So I ended up making a physical resume box thing. My resume, I did it in Photoshop and just all kinds of wild stuff. That would not work now. That's not something that you want to do, because the ATS is going to, the first resume I made, an ATS probably would just absolutely wet the bed, and then it would be over. So that's not something you want to do these days. Keep it simple, keep it easy to read, easy to scan, and that's gonna take you far. Final tip here: how to adapt to get past the ATS, and it sort of touches on the first point, but to go a little deeper, tailor each application and each resume. Tailor it for the role that you're going for. This is another thing that we've said on the show. We've had, lots of recruiters and experts coming in telling us these same things. So by now, if you're listening to all the episodes of the show, you know this. You probably know this anyway. But do whatever you can to make sure that you are tailoring your resume to specific roles that you believe you are really, really good for. There are lots of benefits to it, right? But one of the benefits is, in this context, you're going to be getting past that ATS a lot easier. And then the knowledge of knowing that you've put a resume out there that is truly tailored to the role that you're going for, and you're doing a great job of framing yourself as the perfect person for that role. You can sort of kill two birds with one stone by using a tailored resume to both get past the ATS and to frame yourself as the best candidate for the job. Because once you get past the ATS, you're still going to want to make sure that you're presenting yourself as the perfect candidate for that role, right? So that's a great way to do that. Okay, so to kind of recap, ATSs, they suck. Nobody likes them. They're awful. They serve no purpose. Okay, maybe that's not all completely true, but they are a huge headache for job hunters. And that's not something that I think is in debate right now in any of the conversations that I'm seeing, specifically on LinkedIn, around job hunting and around ATS systems. So yeah, keyword optimization. Do a tailored resume for each of the roles that you're applying for. Only apply for roles that you think you are a really great fit for and that you think are a great fit for you. And then keep things simple. Don't overcomplicate the resume. Okay, so challenge number 2, and this is a big one, not only in the context of AI, but just in job hunting in general. And that is finding ways to stand out, especially in that context of AI and the fact that so many people right now are using AI to create resumes, cover letters, portfolios, and it makes it harder to differentiate real talent from AI-assisted applications from the recruiter's standpoint. But then from our standpoint as job hunters, it makes it harder to stand out if you're misusing AI in some of these ways, right? Like you don't want to overdo it. And again, I've got some tips coming up in a minute here that can help you leverage AI in the right ways and use it in the right ways to enhance your job search, as opposed to just sort of make you another generic AI resume, cover letter, portfolio in the pile. Above and beyond that, AI is also enabling companies to automate outreach and job descriptions. And so, of course, that has the side effect of reducing personal interactions, and it makes it extra tough to establish solid connections with people. These are two big problems, right, that AI presents as far as standing out in the job market. How do we adapt to these? Well, lucky for you, I've got a couple of tips. Here are some things that I've been trying that have worked for me, I think. So number 1, showcase your unique human skills. Emphasize creativity, any leadership experience you might have, your ability to adapt. Those are all really important, really valuable qualities that I think it's safe to say any recruiter, any team, any company is going to be looking for in a candidate, right? Of course, one great way to do that is by posting content on LinkedIn, and we'll dig into that a little deeper in a second. But also, you can make sure that you're making the most of your LinkedIn profile by optimizing your headline, making sure your bio is dialed in. And one thing that I found helpful is using images for the games that I've worked on in my experience section. So, I'll have the company that I worked at, the games that I worked on, and then maybe the key art for each of those games, right? Or a handful of those games, whatever the case may be. That's really helpful. That kind of helps your profile stand out a little bit, be a little more attention grabbing. That's always good. Another kind of example of that is with my consulting business. I have my pitch deck on my LinkedIn page so that, people can see, oh, he does consulting also. And, oh, hey, here's his pitch deck. And you can open that up and see the sorts of services that I offer, my philosophy and my approach and all that kind of thing, which I think is great for just a run-of-the-mill full-time job hunt as well, right? It's always good to put out positive information about yourself and frame yourself as an expert in whatever it is you're doing, which is a perfect segue, if I do say so myself, into the next point, which is build a strong personal brand. And I know that sort of gets an eye roll. I eye roll myself at the personal brand stuff a lot too, but it's really true, right? If you have a really solid personal brand, your LinkedIn, your portfolio, your personal website, whatever the case may be, everything is sort of tied together and cohesive, and it reflects your voice and your expertise. That goes a long way. That's really important, and those are things that you can really use to your advantage. We've talked some on the show about how posting to LinkedIn and sort of putting yourself out there can be intimidating. And there's no doubt about that. It can. Even for the most extroverted people, there's something about putting what you believe is your knowledge and your expertise out there. It's information, and we're worried how people are going to judge it. Are people going to think we're stupid? Oh, I'm going to seem like I don't know what I'm talking about. Imposter syndrome kicks in for a lot of people. These are all things, by the way, that I've experienced myself, right? But I think in the long run, it really is worth it to share your voice and your unique experience. I don't have any data to back this up, but I have a strong suspicion that people that are regularly putting knowledge out there into the world probably find jobs faster. For me, that's a thing that I've tried to do. As someone that's looking for a role in community management, I try to put as much community management and community building type info out there as I can, in the hopes that, I will begin building a backlog of posts and a backlog, sort of a paper trail, let's say, of great posts, great content, showing the knowledge that I have after my 10 years doing the job, right? So consider that, really consider that. Think about what kinds of things that you can do, what kind of content you can create around whatever your discipline is. Like if you have a developer role that's more technical and coding, post about that, post about the challenges, post about the ideas that you've had. And even if you think they're bad ideas, it's still worth putting them out there, because they're probably not as bad as you think they are, and they may not be bad at all. So it's always good to sort of approach things from the standpoint of, how can I put this expertise that I have out there into the world and share it with people? I really believe doing that gives you every advantage in the world. Finally, one last point on this: engage directly with hiring managers and recruiters through networking, referrals, industry events before there's an open role involved. Now, by all means, if there's an open role at a company that you really want to work for, you think it's a great fit, by all means, reach out to these people, recruiters, hiring managers, even just people that work at the studio or the company that you want to be at, and make contact with them. Tell them about the role. Hey, I think I'd be a great fit. Here's why. Here's my resume. Here's a link to my website, whatever the case may be. Don't be afraid to share that with them, but also don't be afraid to share that sort of stuff with people that don't have an open role available, because, nobody wants to be that person that, you only hear from them when they need something, right? So make sure you're building that network for yourself over time when you don't necessarily need that network right now to find a job or to find some sort of opportunity, right? Constantly be growing that and fostering it so that when you do need it, it's there and it's ready to go. All right, so one final challenge, that's something that I think a lot of us think about with AI, is its impact on traditional gaming roles and sort of the roles that we have as people that work in the games industry right now, right? Development, community, marketing, whatever the case may be. AI is definitely automating a lot of aspects of content creation, community management, game development, and naturally that leads to some concerns about job displacement, and a lot of us are worried, hey, how is AI going to affect our jobs? Like, am I going to have a job doing this in 5 years, right? For me, I have, over the past several months, the more that I've been using AI, getting to know AI a little bit, I'm beginning to think that some of these concerns are a bit overblown. So I'm optimistic about them, and I'll tell you why. As a community manager, I can tell you, while there are tools that use AI to help with moderation and other actions, it can't replace the human touch that's necessary for community management specifically. You're still going to have a person that is reaching out to people in certain instances, talking to them, finding out what the issues are, and having that one-on-one human-to-human interfacing with them, right? Similarly, the same goes for development jobs, like I mentioned a moment ago. So if you're a developer and your work requires coding, yes, AI can write code and review code and even debug code in many cases, but it can't code creatively, and it can't code in a way that accounts for human behaviors. Just to name a couple of blind spots for AI, you might say. And all this is to say nothing of AI's most obvious and glaring blind spot, which is artwork. If you're an artist, I mean, any of us nowadays have learned to spot AI art from a mile away. And the consensus is it does not have the same feeling as artwork that's created by a human being. We could go on and on talking about AI and art. That's a whole episode and maybe an entire podcast series unto itself. But that's another good example. AI can't do everything. We still need humans in these roles to create great games or to create great experiences. And I just really don't think there's any way around that. Some roles are evolving, though. So acquiring new skills to stay competitive is never a bad idea, whether we're talking about AI or something else. Not only does it help you stand out among other qualified candidates, it helps you ensure you're always growing in your role. Whatever the thing that you do is, you're getting better, you're growing, and chasing growth is super important. And I think it counts for a lot. So to me, this is a perfect point to segue into talking about some tips for using AI to your advantage. First of all, like I said, stay ahead of any AI trends that you're seeing. Learn how AI is being used in whatever your field or your discipline or your role is. If you're an artist, AI-assisted art tools, what are they? How do they work? Data-driven community analytics, what are the tools? How do they work? And more importantly, understand the blind spots. Like I said earlier, that word is important. What are the blind spots that AI has that humans naturally fill, right? So going back to my example about community management, AI cannot fill in for a human being that is going to reach out to somebody in the community that's having an issue and help them fix it, right? AI can do a lot of stuff, and AI is great for a lot of things, but I think we as people have already, even just in the past couple of years with AI exploding like it is, we've already sort of built up this filter to recognizing when, a customer service conversation may be AI-based and not human-based. There's something to be said there for the idea that humans are still needed in these jobs and in this world and in this industry. So I think that's another big reason to sort of be optimistic. Another tip to using AI to your advantage, upskill in AI adjacent skills. So in other words, figure out ways to use AI tools to enhance and not replace your work. ChatGPT is obviously super helpful for job hunting. Like we said earlier, it can help you write resumes, cover letters, portfolios, all kinds of stuff, as well as help you on the research front. Now, of course, the key is not just taking that stuff from ChatGPT and then using it. It's not a copy-paste thing, right? It's copy-paste into a Word doc or a Google doc or something like that, and then you're changing and you're making it your own. That step is super, super important, and I do think that some people, unfortunately, overlook that. And that is where you sort of get into trouble with AI, when you're just using it to, hey, write a resume for me for this role, write a cover letter for this role, and then you just use that. That's really where I think you start getting into the territory of just being another nameless face in the rabble of AI users. And that's not what you want to be. You want to stand out from that crowd. You want to learn how to use AI to your advantage to enhance your job hunt and not hinder it by just sort of copy pasting whatever ChatGPT gives you. Another thing we mentioned earlier, tailoring your resume. It's definitely not easy, and it's a very intimidating idea. But there are tools that you can use. I mentioned Hunter earlier. It uses AI to help you do that, and it's not perfect, but it gives you a great start on getting that tailored resume really dialed in. And I feel like I'm talking about Hunter a lot, and I'm posting about it every so often on LinkedIn. So I'm planning one of these days to sort of do a full podcast episode review of Hunter and kind of talk about my experiences with it. It's a really great tool, and like I said, it's not perfect, but when you figure out the workarounds and the best ways to approach the tailored resume thing, there's really a lot there, and it's really helpful. And after some practice, it makes things a lot easier. There are a lot of other tools out there too. Do your research and find the tools that work best for you. Then figure out how to best integrate them into your workflow. That's the short process right there. Find a great tool, test it out. If it does great things for you and you enjoy it, how do you integrate it? Okay, finally, last tip here. Position yourself as someone who can work with AI effectively rather than be replaced by it. That's huge because most people are still figuring AI out, and being known as someone who can leverage AI to achieve success will be another way of making yourself indispensable. And really, indispensable is the name of the game, right? AI or not, if we're not making ourselves indispensable and we're not showing our value, that's a problem. We have to figure out how to fix that. All right, that's probably a good place to wrap things up. I've been jawing on now for a while, and I really appreciate you guys listening. If you've made it this far, thanks a lot. Are there any important points that I missed on AI, the job hunt? Let me know on LinkedIn. I'll have links to my page as well as the show's page in the show notes. You can also just search on LinkedIn. That's also pretty easy, so give that a shot. And then, anyway, thanks for listening. Remember to share the show with one friend this week so we can grow this thing. Take care, keep pushing. Hope this was helpful, and we will talk to you guys soon.